Fruities, we'd like to tell you about a new show from our pod pals at Killer Podcasts. Carol Costello presents Blind Rage.
In this podcast, veteran journalist Carol Costello revisits the first big assignment she covered as a 22-year-old novice reporter, Phyllis Cottle's brutal attack. After decades of covering every crime imaginable, this is the one that has always stuck with her.
Phyllis Cottle was a working mother. Then in March of 1984, she was tortured and left to die in a burning car.
Oh my God.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yet she survived.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Doctors and law enforcement had never seen a living victim in this bad of a condition. Detectives referred to her as a living homicide victim. Can you imagine?
No, I cannot. But Phyllis refused to be a victim and used her platform to become an advocate for other survivors, which is why I have already subscribed.
Blind Rage is a story of survival, fury, and triumph. And you can listen to the first episode now wherever you get your podcasts from.
Hey, Fruities! We want to announce that our Fruitloops video club is coming up at the end of this month for our $12 and up patrons.
And in our video club, you get to consume the content at your leisure. So watch the documentary or whatever it is we're reviewing on your own time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to join us to talk about it.
Yep.
Or true crime or whatever we want to, really.
That's right. It's a fun time. It's also a safe space. And if you've ever been like in your car listening to a podcast and be like, no, Wendy, you got that fact wrong. And then violently bang your hands and wrist on the steering wheel. Does that happen to you?
Yeah. If that's ever happened to you, well, join our video club because that'll be a thing of the past.
Woo!
No more screaming into the abyss and risking wrist injuries.
Oh, Lord.
Because you can scream at Wendy's face in real time.
Give it to me. So if you're interested in joining us, check out our Patreon page for more details. And there you also have access to our past episodes, ad-free, plus literally hundreds of hours of bonus content.
Yeah. And next up is a 2023 documentary called I Got a Monster, which we'll be talking about on Sunday, April 30th.
Ooh, can't wait. So you might be asking yourself, Self, why are they telling me all this? And well, this week's episode is a taste of one of our previous video clubs.
Yeah.
Look, if we're being honest, it's all Florida's fault.
Yeah,
and because of Florida, we just need a short break, okay?
Yeah, I actually don't know if that's 100% true, but don't fact check us. And we hope you enjoy this episode, and we also hope you'll join us on the next video club.
That's right. So until then, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
Welcome to Fruitloops Video Club with me, Wendy. Beth is over there. Minnie's down there. That's the way they show up on my Zoom. I don't know what it looks like for everybody else. And we're just really grateful for our Patreon supporters. And we hope that you like our discussion about this documentary, which was suggested to us by Mean Green Marlene, a returning Patreon champ. And it is called The Incident at Oglala, which is a 1992 documentary by Michael Apted. He's dead. Narrated by Robert Redford. Did you know that?
Yep.
Yep.
You did? Okay.
Well, it said so I wouldn't have known it, except that it said so.
Thanks, Cecilia. Oh, it said so at the beginning?
I don't know if it did or not, but when I
say this is Robert Redford, and
no, I don't think so. No. It was just like in the ad for the
in the description.
Okay.
Yeah, the description. So,
I didn't notice that until like the second time I watched it. So the film documents the deaths of two Federal Bureau of Investigations agents named Jack Kohler and Ronald A. Williams. And when there's mistakes from the beginning. First of all, assigning these two very young agents to this part of the world, I also think was a mistake. But we'll get into that.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
Yeah. on the Pine Ridge.
Marlene is here.
Oh, yay.
Here she comes.
Oh, good. Yay, there she is.
I'm so excited to see her.
Yeah. This was a good one.
Yeah, this was an excellent documentary.
This one pissed me off instead of making me cry. So, I mean.
Yeah,
so
I was
good.
like,
yeah.
I mean,
I was like, what? Yeah, we'll get into it.
We'll get there. But you know how I feel about law enforcement and the FBI in particular.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Marlene.
Yes, yay.
No,
I'm so glad you could be here.
Can't hear you. Oh, I heard something.
Oh, I did hear something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So glad you could join us.
Yeah.
This was a great selection. So thank you for picking it.
Yeah.
It opened my eyes to a lot, and I'm hoping it will open.
He's still in prison.
He's still in prison. Yeah.
I looked him up.
And
yeah.
And I think I would classify him as a political prisoner.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I'm being honest. Yeah.
And I was shocked to see that Obama didn't even give him clemency.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We gotta have a conversation about Obama. I mean,
Mr. Obama.
Yeah. Mr. Obama, I have several questions. No president is perfect, but
but
he, especially in his second term, had an opportunity to do a lot of really great things for a lot of communities who had been ignored for a long time, including Leonard, and he didn't. So anyway, there was this massacre at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation on June 26, 1975, and also killed in the gunfire was Native American Joe Stuntz, who was a member of the American Indian Movement, AIM for short, and we'll hear that a lot throughout the documentary, whose death prompted no legal action. Nobody was ever charged for Joe Stuntz's killing. And it examines the legal case surrounding the subsequent trials of Robert Robideau and Darrell Butler. They were acquitted. And Leonard Petlier, who was first extradited to Canada. Then they kicked him out of Canada over some bullshit and sent him to trial. And the FBI got their man. And they really believe they got the right one. And that's gross because it doesn't look like that's the case.
I think they just had a good enough man to pin it on. I don't think they believe that.
You think they know that they're lying?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's get into it. So the film also discusses tribal chairman Dick Wilson, who is, I hate to say this, he doesn't seem like a good person to be in leadership.
No, I would pay to see a movie about that.
Yeah.
About
I think
that administration and everything that went on. It sounded wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been watching the Chippendales documentary, like something of that magnitude on Hulu for us to binge in 6 to 8 episodes to give us an idea. But before I sort of talk through the plot, any initial thoughts that you just can't keep inside about this documentary?
Well, I grew up knowing that he's been in prison. My mom dated a dude that had AIM affiliations. I don't know, just being in that culture anyway, so you're going to know about Leonard Peltier. And I have the DVD. It's been a while since I've seen it, but something came across. I was like, oh yeah, Leonard Peltier is still in prison. And I was like, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did.
I was just going to say, when I was growing up, the way that AIM was talked about is the same way that the Black Panthers were talked about in the white culture. It was like, they're scary, they're terrorists,
militant,
militant.
Aggressive.
I had no idea until we started doing the podcast that what the Black Panthers were all about, and now what AIM is about.
Yeah. And this stuff is necessary
to protect your community that's been oppressed, I mean, for centuries. And some guys, I think AIM was started by men who had lived off of the reservation, been imprisoned, lived in the ghettos of, in other big cities in the United States, and were like, came together and were like, something emerged in them culturally that had been blocked out or missing before. And they were like, we have to fight for our people. We have to fight for our rights. We have to fight for our culture. And that's all AIM was. And it is so threatening to the white establishment or white supremacy. And so any reason, such as criminal activity, that they can use to stomp it out, they will do. And you're right. It's not unlike the Black Panthers. And I think of AIM kind of reminded me of BLM.
Black
Lives Matter,
Yeah.
which is
the way that they talk about it now.
Yeah, the way exactly. And I saw a lot of parallels therein. My first thought was, what the fuck are these two white FBI agents following a guy onto a reservation just because of cowboy boots?
Yeah,
that was shocking.
Like cowboy boots. Note that I took. I said I wrote down. I have a hard time believing the angels went in there about a pair of stolen boots. Why were they plainclothes and didn't go through the community's own police? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right. There's protocols and systems.
Like this. I'm like, this was a lie from the start. That is not why they went in there. That's just a lie. Like, if it doesn't sound right. Absolutely. I'm like, none of this makes sense. Therefore, this is not true.
Yeah.
Like,
I also think that the FBI, and I think law enforcement in general, are just bullies, but the FBI in particular, and
especially at that time.
Yeah, they have killed so many figures who are the leaders of movements of people who are oppressed. And this felt no different.
Yeah.
And they have so many resources. They even have tanks, and they will use them to their own advantage, again, to stop out anything that's a threat to what I would call it white supremacy.
White society,
that was maddening.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp.
Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. My therapist blew my mind this week when I was about challenges with my new job and like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I got that.
Afraid that they're going to find out Wendy's really a big dummy. She's fired. And I'm very self-deprecating because of my habit to always assume the worst while hoping for the best.
Right.
And she was like, Wendy, you don't need to do that anymore. Maybe it worked for you when you were a child, but it no longer serves you. So, her and I have been focusing on setting goals that work.
Nice.
So I can have a sustainable relationship with myself that's less self-destructive.
I like that.
Thank you.
How's it working for you?
Well, it's only been 24 hours and I'm giving myself an A+.
Yay! That's excellent.
Thank you.
You see, Fruities, therapy is really all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding. And it's helpful for positive coping skills.
That's right.
Because sometimes the way that we learned to cope when we were younger doesn't benefit us anymore. But it's hard to realize what we're doing until we talk things through with a therapist.
That's brilliant, Beth. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge.
Discover your potential with BetterHelp.
Visit betterhelp.com/fruit today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/fruit.
The year goes by fast, especially if you're a business owner.
Can you believe it, girls? It's already the second quarter. Santa Maria.
That's right. 2023 is well underway. So don't wait any longer to level up your small business and set your year up for success. Get ahead of the competition by using Stamps.com to mail and ship.
Now, we've been using Stamps.com for years at Fruit Loops Pod. And if you've ever received a thank you or merch from us, we did that with Stamps.com.
And did we mention that we love Stamps.com?
Heart emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji.
It lets you print your own postage and shipping labels right from your home or office. It's ready to go in minutes, so you can get back to running your business sooner.
Stamps.com is the post office only elevated with rates you literally can't find anywhere else, like up to 84% off USPS and UPS. Plus, Stamps.com automatically tells you your cheapest and fastest shipping options.
Stamps.com is a one-stop shop for all your shipping and mailing needs. It's a stress-free solution for every small business.
With Stamps.com, you can get access to the USPS and UPS shipping services you need to run your business right from your computer anytime. Day or night, no lines, no traffic, no waiting.
Set your business up for success when you get started with Stamps.com today.
Sign up with the promo code Fruitloops for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts.
Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code Fruitloops.
So I guess let's go to the beginning, unless anybody else has anything to add before we kind of go through it.
Nope, go for it.
Okay. Well. We open up the documentary and they tell us at the beginning, there's a way you can support Leonard by watching till the end. And interesting fact, Leonard is eligible for parole in 2035. So
that's when he will be released in 2035.
Oh, that's when he'll be released.
So he was eligible for parole in 1993, but he has not been released.
Yeah, he's not getting out.
He's not getting out. No.
You don't think he's going to get out in 2035?
No.
He'll be dead.
Yeah.
No.
78 right
something.
Yeah, he's 70.
Yep.
Joe Byron is in his 80s. I mean, if Joe Byron can make it, certainly Leonard can.
I feel like Joe Byron has better access to healthcare nutrition than,
I was
people in
so
prison.
hopeful. Yeah. Oh my God. I have not much to look forward to on this dumpster fire of a planet. I was looking forward to Leonard getting out. Damn it. All right. Well, so we open with that. And then there is Spotty Jimmy Eagle. A woman said that she was at her grandmother's house all day with one of the people who was involved. And they saw these people coming up and they were unfamiliar with who these motherfuckers were. And somebody said they didn't expect to be shot, or they didn't expect anybody to shoot them. But a lot of the residents of the reservation were like, we didn't know these people. We'd never seen these cars before. They were wearing plain clothes, blah, blah,
How
blah.
are they supposed to know they're FBI agents?
Yeah.
It was a hostile environment anyway. Like, it could have been coming from them.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because they talk about the violence and the unsolved murders that were within the community of this reservation, but they blamed, it was like they were putting all the blame on the community for what had happened, like these murders that were unsolved, which bothered me.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah. And it was clearly the community was neglected by the government and by the president of the tribe, Mr. Dick Wilson. So it felt really victim blamey at some point. So
it did,
the agents, they looked like little children is one of my notes. Those two FBI agents were very young looking.
Yeah.
And then somebody said by them going in there, it was like they committed suicide. Like it was a suicide mission entering the reservation. And the indigenous people were like, why the fuck would feds surround a place with mostly women and children? We're not doing anything here. We just live
the same
here.
reason they have been for hundreds of years, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. That's another excellent point. Yeah. Cause I guess Wilson was like doing really shady deals with like land, selling it to this person or that person for monetary gain. And then is her name Myrtle, who they threatened? She was a witness.
Later on down the line.
They threatened to take her kids away, which is we've seen the colonizers do this in the past. So we shouldn't be surprised, but it is really, really fucked up. Oh, are you going to say something, Marlene?
Oh, I was like, not only that, there was like resources too. There's valuable resources that they were trying to mine and get on. And that's what Dick Wilson was trying to get in on too. Instead of keeping the land sacred, he's like, oh, we can make money. Or, him and his goons can make money.
Not the whole community.
There was a schism between the traditionalists and people like Dick Wilson, who wanted to make lots of money and more aligned with the white culture.
Yeah. And that division that was created between indigenous people is really the fault of the colonizer.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it wouldn't have happened if
absolutely
without the colonizers.
It kept popping into my head that to this day, people talk about, and when I say people, I mean white people, talk about the people I know talk about a lot of the poverty that still exists to this day among people living
in the reservations.
And they say that it is because the government money that's given to the bands or the tribes is not trickling down through the tribal or band leaders. I don't know if that's the case. All I know is that that's what white people think is the cause of the poverty. But again, that shifts the blame once again onto
the victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. But, and I
people
don't know if
suffering.
that's actually true.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear from somebody with direct experience,
Well-
whether or not that's true.
We get that a lot here because in Oklahoma, a lot of tribes have their own casinos. And that's what I hear all the time. Like, well, don't y'all get casino money? Don't you get money from the government all the time? Like, no, like when I was in school, your tribe will provide you with some school money for clothes. You get school supplies.
Mhm.
But yeah, as far as getting money from the tribe, like what we recently did, I think the U.S. gave a grant to a bunch of natives and they just divvied it up.
Mhm.
So like we have been getting a little bit more help than usual. But the last time I got help from the tribe, I turned 18. They gave me $1,000. So it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that
So it's
fixes
like,
everything.
I don't get money all the time. Some tribes
Right.
do, though. Some tribes do a little bit better for themselves with the other commodities that they're invested in, whether it be cattle or they got oil on their land, so they get mineral rights. Therefore, they get what they call per cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
So forth and so forth.
Do you
But
think
yeah.
there's a lot of corruption in tribal leadership? Or
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
so?
If you work in the office, like
Yeah.
everyone that works on council or anything, they help out their family. They all got nice cars. And I'm like, where's all this money going to? Especially when
Yeah.
it comes to like the winter or like the summertime. Elders need propane to keep their houses warm, or they need
Mhm.
like to come out there and fix their AC or just
Mhm.
something to help out the community instead of just
And they're not getting
taking
it.
care of their little inner circle.
Inner
It's all
circles.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And it seems, so that was another thing that kind of popped up in the documentary as well, that there seemed to also be a division based on basically how white you were, So like people who were higher percentage Caucasian were getting more, and people with less percentage Caucasian were getting less. Do you feel any of that?
Not exactly. It might be the other way around. Like the whole blood quantum thing is a whole colonizer thing too. Where they all embrace acid carry. I wish I had my tribal ID.
Yeah,
with me,
isn't that crazy?
It is. You have to have a card to show how much percentage you are. But
Oh my God.
Like, I feel like, if I went to 23andMe and pulled out my percentage of this and that, the other, and if I had to carry that around and show it all the time, like, what the fuck?
What? Yeah.
It's like horses and dogs. And Native Americans are that have to carry around these cards.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way before. Oh my God.
That's pretty
you're
fucked
right.
up. Yeah.
It is pretty fucked up.
Jesus.
Yeah.
God, I hate it here.
Can I be excused?
The reasons to hate this place just keep piling up.
Oh my
And
God.
well, the whole start of that too, though, with the whole blood quantum thing was to, like I said, it's like in reversal. Like the less native that you had, the less they're like, well, you don't need that much then, since you're not that
Oh, okay.
and whatnot. And then some tribal members, I know how they are like that too. Like, well, they just think about blood quantum. They're like, oh, well, I'm full blood. You're half. You're
So there's a kind of a hierarchy going on.
Yeah. So some of them do. Some of them will do that. They're like, well, I'm full blood or whatever. But yeah, it's
people figure out just so many ways to exclude each other or put each other down, and it's just like,
terrible.
humans suck. I hate humans,
Yeah.
and yet I am one. I hate myself. This sucks. Can I be a bird?
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it because I think in every BIPOC community there is this element of colorism. How close can you identify with the colonizer? And those people tend to have more advantage economically, socially, or what have you. And then the darker of us, the, less white of us have additional obstacles. So just hearing about it makes me mad. So these two baby FBI officers go on this reservation looking for somebody who's allegedly stole cowboy boots. And the accounts are from most of the people there were that the shooting most likely came from the officers first.
Right.
And then the indigenous people on the reservation just had to defend themselves. Yeah. So there are guys like coming. I forgot to say that the reservation, they contacted AIM and said, we're having all these problems and we need your help. So AIM was like, hell yeah, we'll help you guys. So they camped out, they, set up shop on the reservation. And when they were needed, they showed up with their weapons and defended the community that was there from these unknown white devils.
Yeah.
So this gunfight ensues, and these two FBI agents are left dead. And then Joe, who was the young Indigenous person, I think he was in his early 20s, was also killed. And so they had been hit by gunfire. The people had no idea who these intruders were. And when the Indigenous people, the men who were protecting the community, made their way towards the cars, there were several more shots fired. And then Williams raised his hand, and the way somebody described, he raised his hand and he was shot through his hand. A bullet went through his head.
Oh, yeah.
The back of his head was gone. And then Fuller was shot in the top of the head and then the neck, and it removed the bottom part of his jaw.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I love
that.
I
Yeah.
love the details. Yeah.
So there was one Indigenous guy, and I can't remember his name, but he's the longer, skinnier, lankier one who was acquitted. But he was like, at that moment, we knew basically we were fucked. Our lives were transformed from that moment on.
Robert Redford.
Yes. That is the name. Thank you. And so then I guess agents swarmed upon the property because they had heard the two agents who were there had no business being there that, were under fire. Copy, 10-4. They're after us, blah, blah, blah. So then Leonard Peltier said he thought they were all going to die. He said that they should go back to their camp and figure out where to go from there. He said they all prayed really, really hard for Joe. They knew Joe was dead. They prayed for his spirit to have a good journey. And they also prayed for the spirits of the agents too. Like, come on. I mean, this is one distinction I would love to make between BIPOC people and white law enforcement is the humanity that we are able to display when they are not. And that felt like a moment of humanity being displayed by praying for essentially your enemy.
Everybody,
For everybody. So then they brought up Wounded Knee, which was a few years prior when there were heavy exchanges of gunfire. It said one Indian person was shot. And then they gave a statistic that in the 1970s, there were 10,000 Lakota Sioux who lived on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And before the shootout at Jumping Bull, the reservation had the highest per capita murder rate in the United States in 1975. And we know, us fruities know, there are many reasons for that. It's not necessarily because of the people there. We talked about in the last documentary that we watched that there is this federal, tribal, legal maze to sort through. And there's also the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people that just go unsolved. And we have campaigns about it now, but we didn't in the 1970s. And so we have to believe that this problem has existed for a very long time. That was my thought on that. And then the killing per William Muldrow, who was the U.S. Commissioner on Civil Rights. He was like, okay, yeah, they had a high murder rate and they had a high crime rate. I don't know who started shooting or what started the shooting, but it's not surprising that an incident might occur under the circumstances, given the level of anxiety, fear, and terror that the people on the reservation had. And then we hear from Dennis Banks, who's the co-founder of AIM, and he talked about the reservation being a war zone. This was another statistic they gave us, that Pine Ridge was, at the time, the poorest reservation in the United States. And I think that made them easier to ignore, if I'm being honest. And let's see, James Aburez, who used to be a U.S. Senator from South Dakota, admitted there was just neglect by the government and more poverty. But he didn't mention anything about what he tried to do about it as, a senator from there. And then he talked about the loss of hope and just the sense of despair and defeat that the people felt. And then Leonard gets on there and says, he expressed that his people were like, wow, this is the rest of our lives. This is what there is for us on the reservation. And then there was some really bleak shots of like dusty, just like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was just dusty and kids playing, and you could see the kids playing, but
They always just talking about the loss of hope. Like, this is it. This is all we get.
This is it.
Yep.
This is all we get.
creeping, don't follow it down.
24 hours ago, I found out the person that I've been dating for the last 6 months is a con man.
That is my sister Emma. Andrew Tonks's lies had been so convincing, she'd invested $300,000 with him. However, the tables were about to turn on Andrew. What he didn't know was that Emma had discovered his real identity. But to get any chance of justice, Emma had to act like it was business as usual. Coming up in this series.
And that's when murder, all this stuff goes through my mind. I'm really, really scared.
I'm assuming Sarah has watched too much Netflix and figures I've been defrauding you. Couldn't be further from the truth.
That's what this was, a real life story that seems so unbelievable, but it was actually true.
A true story that all starts with one simple swipe to the right. I'm Sarah Ferris.
And I'm Emma Ferris, and this is my story, Conning the Con.
And then they brought up the blood thing, which we talked about. And then you get the two factions, the traditional versus the progressive, the mixed blood versus the full blood. And the traditional people with traditional beliefs, and then the other people who were, somebody described in the documentary as United States puppets. And to the white man, if you were half white with a white side, then the government was like way into you. But if you weren't, then they were less so. And then we meet Richard Wilson, who at first was on the tribal council, but then he gets elected to president of the tribal council. And I don't know a lot about how that works, but my impression is that there is a lot of support. You know how the U.S. government fucks up other people's governments? And we do it so often and so
all
well.
The time. Yeah.
I suspected that the U.S. government had a hand in inserting Wilson into power. Yeah. Am I, did anybody else get that vibe? Am I wrong?
Yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to get at when I was talking about the percentage of Caucasian, versus not Caucasian. It's like, those are the people that would be more likely to get into higher positions of power, I would think, because they would have external support from the colonizer government.
Exactly. Yes. External support, and we'll take care of you if you take care of us. Scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours. And from the documentary, it seemed pretty obvious that Wilson was getting a lot of support from people who were outside of his community that he was supposed to be supporting and leading and helping. And he wasn't. He was in charge of all the money, and he was in charge of all the jobs, and he only gave them to his friends and his family. What the fuck? And so the perception was that his administration was just trying to enrich himself. Not a perception. It actually looked like fact. I saw it with my eyes. And then, so he worked closely with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I also don't know a lot about the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but I suspect that there are not a lot of Indigenous people calling the shots at the Bureau of Indian Affairs, just based on what I saw in this documentary, and I would love to be corrected and wrong, but my notes say, fuck those people. Now, people on the reservation were not happy with Rick, and, or not Rick, Dick was like, he had these goons, and there's an acronym that the goons stand for. When I heard goons, I was like, oh, it's a fun word for people who like to harass and beat other people up, but it actually stands for, goon is an acronym for, what is it?
Guardians of Oglala Nation.
Oglala Nation. Thank you. Yeah. And
the Goon Squad.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell, because they interviewed people from the area who were part of the Goon Squad. Some of them looked very white to me. So I don't know if they had any connection with the reservation other than they were hired by Dick to do fucked up shit to the Indigenous people on the reservation.
Yeah, that was my impression.
Yeah. And there were survivors.
They were mercenaries, basically.
Yeah. Survivors who told stories of losing loved ones, family members, children.
Yeah, it was really sad.
It was terrorism. It was pure terrorism.
Shocking.
Like, you do what we say, or this shit's going to happen to you.
Yeah. And it just seems like, I can't believe people can do that and go unanswered. And one very disturbing scene was a gentleman. He looked like he had a perm. I don't know if it was a perm or not, but he was like, sometimes it would get out of hand, like with a big old smile on his face. Like, oh my God. Like, I was I was really horrified by that guy and his statement. And it was, you could tell, I'm sure nobody got in trouble for what they did, what the goons did.
We didn't hear anything about anybody getting
at least
in trouble.
We didn't see it in
the my mind kept going back to what we were talking about on the last meeting, that, white people can go into reservations and commit crimes and they can't be prosecuted.
Yeah.
So what the fuck? I can't
still asking what the fuck.
Yeah.
I know.
So it's kind of like that, and then my mind just kept going around. But these guys who had no business being there went there, got killed. I mean, we never want to say it's a good thing that somebody got killed, but I'm also like,
they had no business being there.
But they could go in and pull these guys out and put them on trial.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
But
it's the inequity.
People can go in there and kill people and they can't be prosecuted. I don't understand. Like how?
Right.
The inequity. Kind of like fair justice system.
It's completely unfair.
It's
that
not.
bitch. That justice bitch is supposed to be blind, but she's not. And they talked about the list of Indigenous people who have died, and 2 FBI agents were killed because they started shit. There's an old African American saying, "Don't start nothing, won't be nothing," and they started something. And they lost their lives, but it was like the value of those 2 individuals' lives meant so much more
and there was all of the other people who had died there combined.
Yeah,
exactly. And there was this enormous campaign, people with index cards and all kinds of red string trying to point the dots at any brown person who was there that day. They brought in Myrtle. They brought in, who else did they bring in? Oh, what'd she say? Sorry, I saw a pop-up from Bryn. And I wanted to read it. Oh, it's pretty identical to the neocolonialism that's talked about in other formerly colonized countries. In my lit degree, I had a lot of focus in post-colonial literature, and I was always surprised they never included any literature by North American Indigenous authors. It felt like a weird separation to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Throughout my education career. And a lot of our textbooks come out of Texas. And, I think there's a reason for that. But
I don't think they think of it as being like formerly colonized. I don't think that they have an understanding that.
Well, the thing is with this particular professor, she was kind of a badass. Like she was a white lady from South Africa who actually had to flee the country during apartheid for protesting.
Oh,
wow.
So she was on a level.
Yeah.
But when I asked her about it, she didn't really have an answer. It almost seemed like she hadn't thought about it.
Never thought about it.
Yeah. Considered it.
And this was at a small liberal arts college.
Right.
That's interesting.
And I thought maybe are there Native studies classes that would maybe take that role, but you're not required to take those like you're required to take English classes.
Right.
And does that keep the separation between this is a past problem or not bringing it into current time? I don't know. I didn't take any of the classes because I couldn't fit them in.
Right. Because they weren't required. I think that's an absolutely valid point to the perpetuation of people just not realizing what's really going on.
And they got to offer it. So they say, well, it is an option.
It is an option. But can I fit it? Can you fit it in? Is the person teaching it going to be competent? And am I going to have enough resources to get an adequate understanding of what's really going on here? And I think that it's a detriment to all of us to not understand where we came from. Because I don't know if you noticed, this shit is repeating itself.
Thank you for saying that, Bryn, because I think it's I think one of the reasons that it's not talked about as formerly colonized is it's still colonized. Yeah, it's currently colonized.
And that's a lot of the neocolonialism writings it's really interesting, but for me, I have to space it out with some fluff reading because it's very rarely a good time.
Heavy,
but it's really important.
I
still have a lot of those books.
Oh, shout out some of the names next time you know where to find us.
One of my favorites, which Wendy, I think you for sure would get a huge kick out of, is called The Lunatic.
The Lunatic.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's a Caribbean author. I'll find it. I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Please do. Yeah. No, we love reading materials. I hope there's an audiobook. Anyway.
Isn't it
very slow?
Maybe I'll just read it to you.
Yeah. Can you
do a dramatic reading at some point.
Yeah, we'll do a
Get
dramatic
Patrick
reading.
Stewart to read it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like where this is going. I am just really, really grateful that you brought that up, Bryn. Like, my mind is exploded. The idea that people haven't thought about the fact that where they are is still colonized.
Yeah.
And we're all victims of it. And we can either close our eyes and not be woke, as people are weaponizing woke.
Yeah.
Like the opposite of woke
That's so
is asleep.
stupid. Yeah.
Is that what you want to be?
You really want to be asleep?
Life? Yeah. No, I oh my God, I have goosebumps. I'm sweating in weird places. So thank you. So there's the initial gunfight. Then there's a secondary gunfight for, I don't know why. It's like the FBI was like, we have to send 350 agents to attack this community of people who were mining their beeswax. And for no reason at all, there's another gunfight. And then the investigation starts and the prosecution starts formulating their whodunit theories. And they identify 3 Indigenous men. And I love this, that the community was like, hey, I'm going to hide you here. I'm going to come stay with me. I'm going to keep you safe. So they all looked out for each other when this big bad FBI fuckery was going on, trying to get them. But eventually the FBI did catch up to
Robert Robideau.
Yes.
And Daryl.
Yes.
Butler.
Thank you. Thank you. So they caught up to both of them. One was found at another reservation. The second gentleman was found. He was driving in the Midwest with a car full of weapons and explosives.
Oh, yeah.
And the car exploded. And he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those stupid kids. But they discovered him because of the explosion, right? It's hard to maintain your cover after that. And then they found Leonard in Canada, but he was like, I'm going to use this colonizer system to my advantage. You're not going to extradite me. And so he's, mounting his defense for himself in Canada. Meanwhile, they're like, we gotta punish somebody. We gotta give somebody a Hertz donut. We're the FBI. so they were like, we wanted to try all 3 of these dudes together. We can't. This will have to just be the next best thing. And they tried them in South Dakota. And the judge was like, he was a good judge. He was fair to the defense. And every motion they filed, he granted it. And the dudes ended up getting acquitted.
Yeah, they mounted a self-defense defense, which makes total sense to me. I mean, these 2 white dudes come onto their property. They don't know who they are, and they have guns. Of course.
I don't think they even knew they were white in the beginning anyway.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was just someone just coming blazing in here. And like I said, it could have been the goons. They didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know.
Yeah.
So the self-defense, and there was one white guy. I don't know what his name is. I don't care. He was an asshole. I hated him.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
That
guy.
I don't.
You don't? The one guy is like, that self-defense is ridiculous. And
oh, yeah.
He was a dick.
That guy,
the one that said tried to claim that the jury had been...
Yes, I think so.
Yes, that AIM had showed up at their houses.
Full of shit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he does not. He should not. He terrified for anybody who.
Dicks.
But he's in a position of authority and power. Maybe he's retired and dead now, and we don't have to worry about it. But I am concerned for people that he is seeking justice for, because I think he's a lawyer. And so they get acquitted. Everybody's like, "Whoa, didn't see this coming," because people mentioned being concerned about these indigenous men. They have long hair. They don't live like us. They don't live where we do. And they were worried about what the jury would do. And we don't see this very often. So I was glad the jury got it right. This was self-defense, and I was really happy. Yeah. Yes. But then it's Leonard's turn. And Leonard's like, you're not going to extradite me. And then the government was like, okay, yes, we will. We found Myrtle, your girlfriend.
Oh, yeah. Jesus
like,
Christ.
This girl, she was
Yeah.
like, I never met him neither, but the FBI does this and law enforcement does this a lot. And they seem to have an easier time doing it to people who are disenfranchised, poor, and of color. We're going to take your kids away. You're going to be in jail. You're going to lose your job. So you better
what
cooperate.
choice did she? She had no other choice.
She didn't have a choice.
Than to say exactly what they told her to say. Like, what
Yeah.
the hell is she supposed to do?
Yeah.
And all I kept seeing throughout this documentary as well were all these male voices controlling the narrative and all these women looking on like, what the fuck, you guys? Like, can't I just have a life?
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying, wasn't she like mentally incompetent too, a little bit?
They said that a lot. I don't think that's a term we would use today.
No, I think she was probably just challenged.
Yeah. Maybe had some learning difficulties.
But still a vulnerable person.
But it would have been enough for them to take her children away if they pushed.
Oh, yeah.
And so 3 affidavits later, and all the affidavits said 3 different things. The Canadian government was convinced, and they were like, okay, you can have him. And they sent
legit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. So then Leonard goes back to the United States, and the trial this time takes place in a different venue in Fargo, North Dakota, with a different judge who's more plaintiff friendly. And I mean, before we even get to the trial part, everybody who commented was like, we knew he was going to be found guilty. We just knew it. They needed to have somebody to pin this crime on, and it was him. But then we come to find out that the bullet is an issue because the evidence doesn't add up. The car that they were following onto the premises, I know what a truck is. I know what a van is. I know what a Suburban is, and I'm not in the FBI. So how can like these?
They were trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. Yeah.
Never in 100 years would I have referred to that vehicle as a pickup truck.
Also, this started over cowboy boots.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That
Cowboy
makes
boots.
That made me do a double take.
I know. I know. It's
I had actually
stupid.
trouble focusing probably a good 30, 40 minutes into the video because my brain was like, this story makes no sense. This story makes no sense.
This sounds like a job for the FBI.
Hello, FBI, my boots are missing.
Somebody
went
stole
that
my
way.
cowboy boots.
Yeah.
After him, quick. Let him get
Not
away.
your
He's got
cowboy
the
boots.
Yeah. And I also didn't know this is that there's FBI like field offices all over the place.
Yeah.
And these guys were young and new in their careers. And maybe it was a less desirable beat to patrol.
Yeah, that could be.
And so my impression also was that they were looking for like action.
Oh,
Get their name on the map. So they can go straight to Washington, D.C. and work for Joe Byron. I think, but they made a big ass mistake.
I think they knew what they were getting into. They're like, oh, we can say we're coming in here for these boots, but it's a bunch of radicals there. It's a hot zone. And yeah, surely.
That was really stupid.
I feel like there was some like male arrogance.
Yeah, poking the bear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
I
poke the
fully
bear.
agree that the whole boot thing was just made up as a, purported reason why they went
Did
there.
anybody ever find any boots?
They never said anything about the finding
No
the boots.
update on the boots.
No.
What you got, Marlene?
After the shooting, Peltier, Robidoux, and Butler were arrested, and Jimmy Eagle was dismissed for lack of evidence. So it's just like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little sus.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the documentary, we find out that there's a Mr. X who said he did it.
He's the one who killed the agents. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. X's
And
story makes way more sense than any of the other stuff.
wow. Yeah. I wish they wouldn't have waited till the very end to tell us it, but it kept me watching. It kept me engaged. But I was like, why doesn't he come forward? And I guess maybe, I don't know.
Because he doesn't want to go to jail.
He doesn't want to go to jail.
Yeah,
but
obviously.
I also really, really respect
Peltier.
I'm not good at French. Yeah. Leonard Peltier's stance, like, I'm not out here to bring other people down or have somebody else take this sentence just because I want to get out. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I don't know. I would definitely not do that, but I respect it. I respect his position. Even his daughter was like, I think it's stupid what my dad is doing, but he's not going to change his mind. And
I think what it is that this Mr. X is somebody that Peltier thought would be better equipped to affect social change, and that having that person in prison would be a greater detriment to the community than him being imprisoned. And I think that that's why he doesn't want it.
Could be. Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but I love it. I mean, I love it for the community, right? Like,
well, I mean, I hope that's the case, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Either way, you got to respect that he's not willing to snitch.
Yeah. For the greater good.
Stitches.
Yep, that's right.
But I also think Leonard's story, I didn't know anything about this until Marlene suggested the documentary, but I feel like his case is a form of activism in itself. Like the whole story. And I think we all can learn a lot from this situation and from, the position that Leonard finds himself in. Because I was listening to a podcast with some lawyers who defend tribes and talked about this case and how it is like a beacon for people who are fighting for Indigenous communities. And I thought that was super rad.
Yeah.
Any other? We have 8 minutes left.
I just kept thinking.
This was awesome.
Yeah, I kept thinking at the end, if he hadn't gone to Canada and he had went to trial with the other ones, and he probably would have been acquitted, and that makes me sad.
Maybe, but I think someone had to be a scapegoat. Someone was going to have to pay for this.
Somebody.
Yeah. So if it wasn't him, it probably would have been somebody else. They probably would have drag somebody
else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what the FBI does.
You're right.
They do it very well. Yeah,
it was 100% pinned on him. Like there was zero evidence.
It was just amazing.
They manufactured evidence.
The gun, the gun evidence, the bullet, the ballistics.
They had that one con who was studying it, and also the Manson murders.
Oh yeah.
And his kick-ass landlady was like, this guy's like, why are you taking him seriously?
I remember that. I remember that. I was also gonna say that I wonder what came of Myrtle. Is she okay? Myrtle Porber?
So
she stuck out in my mind a lot. It was just a really interesting doc. I learned so much. So thanks y'all for watching it with me.
Yeah. Thanks for suggesting it, Marlene.
Yes, thank you, Marlene. It was a great one. Any parting thoughts or feelings or comments?
It made me really sad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very much so.
Oh, okay. So we were talking before Bryn and maybe Marlene got on. He gets out in 2035.
Yeah.
That's not that long.
It's pretty long when you're 78 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. He is, let's see. Yeah, he was born in 1944. So, 2035.
I do have a quote that he says. He says
91.
Yeah, he said the only one thing is sadder than remembering you were once free, and that's forgetting you were once free.
Oh, shit.
Oh, man. Wow.
Forgetting what it's like to be free.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, are you reading a book by the...
No, it's my podcast notes.
So
I do a horror podcast.
I know you do a horror movie podcast. Can you shout it out for us?
Yeah, shout it out.
Horror Movie Warriors.
Horror Movie Warriors.
Okay.
Yeah, really cute.
Subscribed.
I really like that little community. But yeah, I had to take notes. So I took notes for this one too.
Love it. Okay. Well, I can't think of anything else to add other than this was great. Everybody looks gorgeous. And it was just really, really wonderful to be in community with y'all over something that we all dig, which is true crime and justice and stuff. So thank you all. I love you all so much. And I think I'm going to go to sleep now.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Love you all.
Yeah.
Bye, Fruities. My notes say, fuck those people.
I hate humans, and yet I am one. I hate myself. This sucks. Can I be a bird?
Because I don't know if you noticed, this shit is repeating itself.
Yeah.
That justice bitch is supposed to be blind, but she's not.
So what the fuck?
I'm still asking what the fuck.
I know.
Also,
No.
this started over cowboy boots. That made me do a double take.
Sounds like a job for the FBI.
Hello, FBI. My boots are missing. Hey, we gotta give somebody a Hertz donut. You know, we're the FBI. So, oh my God, I have goosebumps. I'm sweating in weird places. So thank you, dude.
Something is creeping. Don't follow it down.
24 hours ago, I found out the person that I've been dating for the last 6 months is a con man.
That is my sister Emma. Andrew Tonks's lies had been so convincing, she'd invested $300,000 with him. However, the tables were about to turn on Andrew. What he didn't know was that Emma had discovered his real identity. But to get any chance of justice, Emma had to act like it was business as usual. Coming up in this series.
And that's when murder, all this stuff goes through my mind. I'm really, really scared.
I'm assuming Sarah has watched too much Netflix and figures I've been defrauding you. Couldn't be further from the truth.
That's what this was, a real life story that seems so unbelievable, but it was actually true.
A true story that all starts with one simple swipe to the right. I'm Sarah Ferris.
And I'm Emma Ferris, and this is my story, Conning the Con.